This is All Things Fitness and Wellness, uniting industry thought leaders and fitfluencers on the mission to inspire innovation and encourage people to live a life fit and well. Brought to you by British Columbia Personal Training Institute. Learn how to train, gain, and retain clients. Visit bcpti.ca. On today's episode of the ATFW Industry Series, we're hearing from Sara Hodson, president of the Fitness Industry Council of Canada. Sara has some staggering stats and some hard doses of reality when it comes to the state of physical activity in Canada and on a global scale. So we're going to dive into some of these figures and learn what we can do as industry leaders and a community to improve things so everyone can live a life fit and well. Before we get into it, make sure that you hit like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This is ATFW. 84%. That is the number of the adult population that is not getting enough physical activity. That means only 16% are. Sara Hodson joining me here from the Fitness Industry Council of Canada. Sara, what do you think when you hear that stat?
I hear that we are not doing a good enough job. I hear that we don't have enough programming and support and incentive and education and understanding for people to be more active. And, it really tells me that potentially this word activity isn't understood very well, and how to be active isn't understood very well, and even how little activity people need in order to truly benefit their health.
And this is really something, Sara, we're going to be tackling throughout the podcast today. First, before we dive in, tell people what is the role of the Fitness Industry Council of Canada? Because obviously thought leaders from the industry are aware, but there could be some fitness consumers that are not.
Yeah, so the Fitness Industry Council of Canada represents over 6,000 fitness facilities in Canada, and we truly are the advocacy and the voice of the industry to provincial governments, the federal government, in order to ensure that fitness business is supported and so that we can get as many Canadians active as possible.
And when you talk about the fact that Canadians are not getting enough physical activity, what is the goal? What's the misunderstanding there?
Well, there's this number of, 150 minutes a week of activity. And that truly is a number that has been shown to prove that at about 150 minutes, we start to see health benefit. I think that for people who are doing zero, though, 150 feels like a lot. And so what people maybe are not able to reverse engineer from that number is how to get started, right? And we all know it's really hard to get started. And fitness is not something that is kind of like, oh yeah, I tried sewing, I went to an art class. It's not a one-off thing, right? It's a behavior and a habit and a routine that we have to get into. So it is something more complex than just kind of trying something. It's something that every single week we kind of have to hit a target. But I think that yes, for some people, a target is very motivating, right? And for some people, a target is really overwhelming. And when we get overwhelmed and inundated with information, we do nothing, right? It's the all or nothing that we fight with. And unfortunately, too many Canadians are doing nothing with that information.
And Sara, you bring up such a good point because there is such a misunderstanding about motivation. People often think when I'm motivated, that's when I'm going to do it, where motivation actually comes after the action. And then we often think that the action has to be the top of the mountain, where really you just need to put one step forward in front of the other. Now, I know that the FIC has been involved in a lot of studies here. And if we were to say to most people, if you could take a prescription that would fight depression, fight type 2 diabetes, fight heart disease, would you take that prescription and make sure you have it? Yes. But it does exist. So let's get into some of the costs and effects of this lack of activity that's a Canadian problem and, dare I say, something that's globally seen.
I think that over the last 2.5 years, we have really seen how fitness was put into a category that potentially was to the opposite of health. In order for us to isolate the COVID virus, we were closing down gyms. However, the opposite effect is actually what is true, is that fitness is part of healthcare. And when we actually look at the fundamental components of exercise and we look at the physiology in our body, the chemistry in our body that's happening, has nothing to do with physique and performance. That is what is a component of fitness, and it is a consumer activity of fitness, right? Kind of like if we think of it as like a foodie, we have restaurants and we have food and most people go and they eat food, but then we have people who they really want to try the food and they want to report on all of these things. Of course, there's a niche for performance and physique building. But the majority of fitness and movement is all about our health and about managing our health. And I think we've often kind of dumbed that down in society by just going, oh, if you exercise, you're healthier. Or even worse than that, if you exercise, that's going to help you to lose weight. And we actually know that exercise is a miracle drug, but it's not a weight loss pill. It absolutely will help people to manage their weight, but we attach these things and then we distort the purpose of exercise. And exercise truly is in small doses. It is managing our blood sugars. It is lowering our blood pressure. It is helping us to manage the symptoms of depression. In fact, in large-scale clinical trials, exercise is just as effective as antidepressant medication, right? And that is not just through feel good. That is actually the physiology and the chemistry of our brain changing in the short term and the long term. And so when we really look at exercise from a holistic medical perspective, it's an incredibly powerful tool, and it doesn't have to be something that is about running marathons or doing 50 push-ups. It can be about doing a walk and doing some light resistance training, right? We have to be able to work our muscles. That is a component of fitness.
And I think one of the elements that we end up celebrating, obviously, you're a huge fitness enthusiast. You've got the Live Well Exercise Clinic. I'm a massive fitness enthusiast. But I bet you're like me. It's the mental health benefits above everything is why we do it day in, day out.
Yeah. And I think that we recognize that more when we don't, right? When we don't have access, when we're not participating, when things get busy and we maybe kind of don't do our workout that day. I know that for me, those are my toughest days, right? And so I know what I need. I know the boost that I need. I know what it gives me. But I think that we also have to empower people to understand the benefits of physical activity. And when we look kind of across Canada, the Fitness Industry Council of Canada partnered with Sheffield University out of the UK, and we looked at data out of Canada. And in 1 year, Canada was able, through physical activity, to prevent 2.2 million cases of chronic disease. And that is segmented with kind of the top 6 chronic health conditions, right? 2.2 million cases were prevented, which equals almost $24 billion. I am using the B word, yes. I hope we're allowed to on this podcast.
Absolutely. Billion. This is a serious thing.
Yeah. $24 billion was saved because of reducing those chronic health conditions. And so, I think that shows an incredibly powerful position that activity plays in not just the health of us as individuals, but in the health of all Canadians and in our healthcare system, which is in crisis right now. And we're being told and we're being encouraged, and it's really a provincial and a federal kind of mandate for us to be creative around our healthcare spending, for us to be creative around how are we going to overcome this healthcare crisis. Yet we still don't have fitness as the forefront conversation of that, and we can and we should. And again, this research that we were able to do shows how important that really would be and how critical that is for Canadians.
Well, and speaking of critical, Sarah, because you're saying these billions of dollars that were saved due to prevention, but we started the podcast with the fact that 84% of Canadians are not getting their activity. Therefore, that means the cost of that must be substantial on top of a fractured healthcare system.
Absolutely. And when we look at, I often talk about the no fit to low fit, right? The no fit to low fit is a really interesting category because many people would psychologically think that it wasn't good enough if they had a low fitness level. But I think that what we want to encourage Canadians today to do is if they have a no fitness level, to move to a low fitness level, and for us to forget about these high expectations of going out and running or even being active every day. It's about how do we get little doses of activity in so that we can move from no fit to low fit, because when we do that, it is incredible the health impact that we have on our own bodies.
And we're so lucky in Canada. The fitness industry here is robust. There are so many fantastic options to get out there. I know gym intimidation is a huge factor for people, whether it be a class or a yoga, but the community is beyond supportive when you walk in that door. I know it's the biggest thing to overcome when we get that own anxiety in our mind, but I don't know about your experience, but anytime I've walked into a new space, it has been beyond welcoming.
Absolutely. And there's nothing better than a friend, right? Bringing a friend with you to have that experience, but also bringing a friend with you for that social connection and accountability, right? Because we're likely to let ourselves down, but we're not likely to let a friend down. And so if we experience it with somebody, then when it's time to get up and go to that spin class, you're going to go together, right? And you're going to encourage you. And there's going to be a day you don't want to go and a day your friend doesn't want to go, but ultimately you both go because the other person's going. And so, grab a friend and go and try out a fitness class. Go and try out a fitness gym. Most fitness facilities and businesses and programs and studios, they have a free class or a trial or something just to do exactly that. Encourage people in to just try it, because I think people will be really surprised.
Absolutely. And you bring up a good point about the social element. I know there's been some fascinating studies in that space because I think most people are aware physical benefits, mental benefits. Our social lives and social connection was so badly brutalized during the last couple of years. I think everyone can agree we've never realized how important connection is. And it turns out that our fitness facilities across the country are a great way to spark that to life.
We talk a lot about our physical and our mental health, right? But we haven't talked enough about our social health, and it is a component of our health. And in fact, if we look at the inverse of that, social isolation and loneliness are huge risks for multiple chronic health conditions. And so we know that social interaction is imperative for people for their health. But it's also so great for us to find a community and to feel that belonging, right? And so when the whole world kind of went virtual for a bit there and people were doing fitness on Instagram and YouTube and so forth, there was a big question of is this the future of fitness? Is it going to be online and virtual and all of these things? And we're seeing a real day of reckoning again. We're seeing that real swing come back where people are craving the in-person connection. And actually more so, people are craving highly individualized, customized, personalized services, right? And so I think that really speaks volumes of how fitness is a component of, again, not just physical health or mental health, but social health. And I don't think that there's many industries that we can talk about that hit all of those.
And when it comes to how the industry is pivoting with this information, what have you been seeing for people to cater to that social element and those changes of what people desire?
I think that there is a refreshing of our messaging as a fitness industry, of our inclusion and our diversity in our studios and clubs, of our acceptance of all different types of people, because fitness doesn't have a look. Fitness doesn't have a body type. Fitness is about moving our bodies no matter what. So I see a really big change, and I've been to many fitness conferences over the last couple months, and this is a huge conversation about inclusion and about creating, this is more than just fitness. This is a community and belonging, fitness studios who have, social gatherings and parties and art classes and all different things happening inside and outside their facility. So it really is a tight group of people. And I think that when we then look at that, we know that adherence to physical activity, adherence to our fitness, adherence to movement, the glue to that is those social connections. And so, when we look at why do people start fitness, it's for a variety of reasons. But a year later, why are people sticking with fitness? The number one reason is people. It's their social connections.
And it has been so fascinating to watch because through the pandemic, when you look at creatives, for example, so many went inward and then came up with all these innovative ideas. And I'm starting to notice that so much in the fitness space. Obviously, it was heartbreaking for all these companies, business owners to have to go through such a tremendous pivot. Personally, my own opinion over the shutdowns as a consumer during that time. Did it make a lot of sense to me? No, not personally. I think it's one of the most valuable things that we could have had and have been doing. But it has been really impressive to see from those that have survived, because we know that a lot of fitness centers or independent owners weren't able to navigate through that. It has been so wonderful to see an industry that pivots. And I don't think it's by happenstance, because people in this industry genuinely care to the core about the messaging that you are saying. Mm-hmm. And they care about it because they live it as well.
Yeah. And, I think that it's about us also recognizing our bigger impact. And so this study, again, that FIC did with Sheffield University, it was really interesting. We started an Engage with Sheffield University just over a year ago. And they had already done all of this research in the UK by actually looking at, what is the impact on healthcare cost savings that is produced by the fitness industry and by people being active. And these were numbers that over the last 2.5 years, as Canadians and as the voice of the fitness industry, we wish we had in front of us. We didn't have that data. In the UK, they had that data. So very interestingly, they were able to share with their government what actually the loss would be if they shut fitness facilities. Right? And so now the information that we have in front of us as the fitness industry is that there is a over $14 billion healthcare cost savings from people being active in Canada. Of that, over 6 billion of it, again, I'm using the B word a lot, over 6 billion of that is directly from fitness facilities.
Wow.
And so when we really start to look at that, okay, this is a healthcare cost saving that simply by being active, we are providing to our provincial and to our federal government. We can't hear that number and know that number and not fight for policy change and not have the government respond to policy change knowing that number. When we're looking for creative ways to overcome our healthcare crisis, we have to see that number and we have to do something with it.
Turn your passion for fitness into a career with British Columbia Personal Training Institute. Taught by personal trainers, BCPTI combines classroom and in-gym training to give you the tools needed to succeed in the fitness industry and make an impact. With a simple formula focused on service, science, and sales, prospective personal trainers learn how to gain, train, and retain clients. Visit bcpti.ca for more information. Yeah, because I was going to say, healthcare crisis, that is a fact.
Yes.
Healthcare cost savings, that is a fact.
Yes.
To you and I, it seems simple. All of a sudden, you're like, there's a solution here. So let's talk a little bit about the FIC and its ability to rally all these thought leaders. Saskatchewan, talk to people that aren't aware what took place in the province of Saskatchewan earlier this year.
Yeah, so Saskatchewan was looking to move forward their PST tax bracket and to apply that to a variety of business categories, fitness being one of them. So it was going to be fitness and entertainment. And so, rodeos and, theater and sporting events and then fitness, right? So something that you might go to and buy a ticket to once a year or something, and fitness that we want people to be going to regularly, right, all the time, and paying monthly for. And so it was very bad timing for the provincial government in Saskatchewan to include fitness, because this is, again, all around, when we're talking about incentive dollars, we are looking at people are incented by even small amounts of money. And therefore, adding PST to gym memberships will hold people back from being fit. Right? And so the moment that we heard that fitness was included in this category, we rallied our Saskatchewan fitness businesses. We rallied the people of Saskatchewan. We did a change.org petition. We went and we attended a question period with the provincial government, and we really challenged them. We brought out business owners, members, employees. We started a letter writing campaign. We hit the media. We were, locally in Saskatchewan and nationally, because this was not just a Saskatchewan issue. This was a Canadian issue, because if Saskatchewan moved forward with taxing fitness, we were going down a very, very bad path. And so we came together and we fought hard, and we were very, very pleased at the end of August. The Saskatchewan government reversed their decision and removed fitness from all of the other categories that would be charged tax. And it was a huge win for us, a win for the people of Saskatchewan, but a win for Canada, that fitness is not about a tax and about a money-making ploy. In fact, the ludicrousy of the whole decision was that the use of the PST tax income was to offset healthcare costs.
Oh my gosh.
That was going to be the use of funds. And just no education or data or time spent on truly understanding those numbers. And so we're really, really glad that our advocacy and our work there in Saskatchewan was able to reverse that action.
And thank goodness you made some noise there. It does kind of illustrate, though, where fitness is on the priority list of government right now. So on that note, you're not done making noise. You're rallying the troops. Tell people about what you are lobbying the government for. And this is really important for those that are already consumers of fitness, obviously the industry, and thirdly, those that are looking to make the first step that can already come up with barriers in their own mind.
Yeah. So two things. On a provincial level, we know that Newfoundland has last year, they put in place a $2,000 adult fitness tax credit. And they are saying that they want to be the fittest province in Canada. And I, urge Canadians and provinces and provincial leaders, let's get competitive. Let's gamify this. Let's, I want to champion Newfoundland for sure, because I think it's incredible that their government has been proactive and seen this, which should be mainstream action. But I would say, why is the rest of Canada sitting back and nobody else wants to say, we want to be the fittest province? No, we want to be the fittest province. Let's create billboards in every city that rank which province is the fittest, and let's gamify this, right? And that means that we have to give people tax credits in order to incent people to get started, right? Because like you said, whatever gets us started, that's not our motivation. Our personal why and our personal reasons it's deeply personal. It's actually deeply emotional for most people, right? But it's not a moment that we hope is going to sweep us off of our feet. It's not love at first sight, right? It's about us taking that step and doing that action. So provincially, this is what we are working on. And federally, we are looking to have fitness memberships included in line 33099 of our personal taxes as a medical expense. It is currently listed there, but is ineligible. And the conversations that we've been having over the last almost 2 years now continue to advance, that continue to get stronger. We haven't had anyone say this is a ridiculous idea. Absolutely not. This is about us finding a place and a strategy and a way to execute on this, and to move this forward in a meaningful way that can impact all Canadians. The reason that we are going after it this way is that this is a program that already exists. This is a line item that already exists. We're asking for ineligible to be changed to eligible. So we're asking for 2 letters to go away, and for that to encourage Canadians. And I think it also sends a really strong message about if this is considered a medical expense on our taxes, we are then as a country standing behind fitness and exercise, and we are saying exercise is medicine, which it is. And we live in a country that funds the research to prove that exercise is medicine. We have some of the best researchers. We fund education to teach that exercise is medicine, but we are not willing to fund Canadians to live out that proof. And that is a disservice, I believe.
I could not agree with you more. You do say as you're going through this process, it's quite well received. Is there any opposition that you're hitting or roadblocks along the way?
Typically, the roadblocks that we hear more commonly is how does this impact every Canadian? How do we create a kind of one-size-fits-all approach? But there really is no one-size-fits-all approach in any level of politics for any type of programming. And so this is just, again, taking one piece and moving this forward, provincially creating adult tax credits, at community centres creating access, ensuring that all Canadians do have access to physical activity. But this is just one area of it that we see being really, really incredibly impactful in that decision for Canadians to be active. We just are incented by that.
And I think I saw this statistic in one of the reports. 6 out of 10 Canadians say this would be the thing that would help with that first step.
Yeah, and so we did a poll across Canada to really ask Canadians, and this was in response to the federal government saying, okay, so if we were to do this, how do we know Canadians would actually think that this was meaningful? And so we did this survey and found that 6 out of 10 Canadians would say that. And, we know that Canadians are more incented by, Canadians use rewards cards more than any other country. Canadians, we are gamified in that way. And so we will continue to fight forward for that for Canadians, because I do think that it could be a very impactful and changing way that we look at physical activity.
Well, and especially with those stats, as I say, 84% not having enough activity, 60% technically, if we go 6 out of 10, are for this and getting them moving. So how can the industry help push this along, and how can the average Canadian?
This is about ensuring that all levels of government are aware, and that the conversation continues to rise from a grassroots perspective all the way up to, our direct meetings that we have with the Prime Minister's office and with the Minister of Finance. So, everyone plays a role in talking about this and encouraging this, and, write to your MP, write to your local politicians and tell them about the access that you want to physical activity. Tell them about how your exercise has impacted your life, right? From not just I look good, right? But from how I feel, how I'm moving. How has this really changed my life? And one of the incredible reports that also came out this year in partnership with URSA, where Deloitte actually was a third-party validator of the report, was really able to show, again, things even just about workplace productivity and absenteeism, and how people who have a certain level of fitness have lower absenteeism and higher productivity. So the next stage of our research as FIC with Sheffield University is then starting to even look at, people who are active. What does that mean for education levels, for reduced crime? What other way do we contribute to our society for those people who are being more active? So stay tuned for stage 2 of that research.
Well, we're so appreciative of the strides that you have taken, have achieved, are on the road to making. I'm curious, Sara, because I know you're a lover of the health and wellness space. How has focusing on fitness impacted your life personally?
Well, I can say that it has been my saving grace over the last 2.5 years. There's been, all of us have had very dark days, and a lot of times when we just don't understand the decisions that are being made. And, as the president of the fitness industry, we have seen over a third of fitness businesses close in Canada. And I've heard a lot of those stories personally. A lot of tears have been shed. A lot of families have sold their family homes, have been devastated by this. And this was a really, really hard time. And without getting out for my run, getting out for my walk, and any time that fitness was open, getting in the gym, I think I would have broken mentally, because there was days of intense struggle there just to keep everything afloat. But we are where we are today. And this month, this season, we have seen Canadians rushing back into fitness facilities like never before. And as the Fitness Industry Council of Canada, we track global data. And we know that Canada has been one step behind some other countries, but we're really seeing Canadians engaged and coming back to fitness in a big way right now.
Well, before we let you go, on that note, at All Things Fitness and Wellness, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here, but I love to have people share a little motivational nugget of wisdom. So what's one of the most inspirational things that you live by or you have heard that you can impart on another to just boost them through their day?
I think that all of us come to fitness and we don't necessarily... I think we have to recognize that people are coming from all different types of days. People are coming in and they've had a really hard morning. Maybe they got some bad news. People are coming and they're showing up to fitness as a way to manage that, right? And so I encourage us to look at every person and to not judge them for their lack of physical activity, to not underestimate how hard it is to get started, but instead to champion people and to come alongside them and to encourage them, because I think we have to admit it is hard to get started with things, but once we get started, once we put one foot in front of the other, it is amazing the doors that will open. And so today, just take that one extra step. And that one extra step, you have no idea where that could lead you.
Beautifully said. Sara Hodson with the Fitness Industry Council of Canada. Thank you so much for joining us.
Chrissy. Yeah.
You've just listened to All Things Fitness and Wellness, the Industry Series. This episode was brought to you by the British Columbia Personal Training Institute. Learn how to train, gain, and retain clients. New episodes of the Industry Series drop every Monday and the Celebrity Series every Wednesday. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you never miss out on hearing from industry thought leaders and influencers. We are on a mission to help everyone live a life fit and well.